Hi guys, my name is Grace. This story happened when I was 17. It was my graduation year at school, and while my classmates were worried about scholarships and prom dresses, I was facing much more epic struggles because our mom abandoned us just before prom, and this fact was reflected in my gown. You see, my mom was a very eccentric and irresponsible person. She has always liked to party, and almost every season, she brought home a brand new stepfather. It's no wonder that each of her 3 children have different dads. I'm the older one. As far as I know, my father served in the Navy, and he had a brief affair with my mom during one of his breaks. My brother Tommy was born when my mom tried to quit drinking. She was visiting a support group and fell in love with one of her co-fellows, Jack. They were together for 2 years and gave birth to Tommy. Jack supported my mother. But eventually, it didn't matter. She was bored and decided to get rid of him. Of course, she started drinking and partying again. That's when she met a hot chef named Michael from a local restaurant, and Tommy's father had to move out. I was a little upset because Jack was the most mature person among all of her boyfriends, but on the other hand, the chef cooked really delicious breakfasts for us. Soon, my mother got pregnant with Nellie, our little sister, who is now 4 years old. And Tommy is 6. So anyways, the chef had to go too. He had to move to another city to continue his studies. At least that was the official reason for their breakup. My mom began drinking even more, and I had to look after the kids while she was having fun God knows where. We have never had a lot of money, and from time to time the situation would become critical. We had tons of unpaid bills, had to collect coupons for food, and sometimes ate only noodles for weeks. Of course, I tried to discuss this with my mom, but she was very defensive, like it was my fault that her life didn't go the way she wanted. Last Christmas, I could not afford to get any presents for my sister and brother, and Mom just left for a festival with her friends, so we had to stay alone for Christmas. I always liked arts and creativity. My dream was to become a fashion designer someday. I like to work with unconventional materials because my mother never bought me any normal fabrics. She'd also say that it was impossible to make it in fashion design these days. Anyway, back to that Christmas Eve. When I realized that we had to celebrate alone, I gathered all the food that we had in the house, prepared some baked potatoes and carrots for our holiday table. The kids helped me to decorate the living room. As for the presents, I had a genius idea. Our mother kept old cigarette packs and empty bottles in the basement. She never put them in the trash for some reason. So I decided to build a castle for the kids. It turned out ridiculous, but beautiful. The children were so happy and surprised, and they started to play dolls in this castle immediately. Our Christmas had been saved, and it was one of the most peaceful and positive holidays we've ever had, to be honest with you. At the same time, I had also been invited to several Christmas parties, but I had to miss them all and lie to my friends, saying that I went on a family vacation to the Caribbean. You see, I wasn't very honest with my friends from school about my family issues. Because of my high grades and achievements, I had been accepted to a very elite school. Almost all my classmates came from rich families. They would never have accepted me into their group if they knew the truth about my mother. Those teenagers were really mean, and I was too notorious. I lied to my girlfriends. I used various tricky ways to obtain branded second-hand clothes to back up the illusion that I was from a well-to-do family. I always arrived to school a little earlier than everybody else so that nobody could see that I arrived on a bus. And many other stupid things. Ridiculous, I know. After Christmas, Mom came back, and she wasn't alone. She brought this new guy, Scotty. Very handsome and young. My mother immediately said that he was going to move in with us. She met him at a Christmas festival. Their eyes met, and it was love at first sight, as usual. Then she walked into the living room and noticed the castle. She looked very embarrassed, but tried to hide her confusion from Scotty. She asked the kids to bring the castle to their room and change the subject. But when we were finally alone in the kitchen that day, she yelled at me and blamed me for making her look like a monster in the eyes of her new love interest. I tried to remind her that the castle was the only gift her children received from Santa, and she just called me selfish and ungrateful. So Scotty moved in. We talked a lot, and he seemed really nice. It turned out that he was only 22, but he had a very tough background. His relationship with my mother became some sort of refuge for him. He wasn't aware that she had 3 children when they met, but he quickly got used to this fact. Scotty worked as a part-time locksmith and helped us a lot around the house. I finally had some time for myself, since he was always eager to babysit the kids. After a couple of months, we got closer. I started to feel that strange vibe from him. I felt like he liked me in a way. I mean, liked me like a man likes a woman, but he was trying to hide it. When we came face to face, he always got really nervous. I pretended not to notice. I felt this strange attraction too, but never allowed myself to even think about that. It was about 2 weeks before my prom, and I needed money for my dress. Besides, my friends ordered a limousine, and we agreed to share the expenses equally. It would be too suspicious of me to say no. My friends still had no idea that my family was poor. You see, I had dreamt about having the perfect prom dress since I was a little girl, so I finally worked up the courage to ask my mom about the money during our dinner with Scotty and my siblings. My mom was still trying to pretend to be a good parent, so my chances were higher. But not this time. When I told her about the costs for the prom, she got furious and suggested that I just stay home instead. Scotty tried to protect me. He said he had some savings, and that's when my mom exploded. She punched the table and yelled, "Really? Maybe she should just become your girlfriend instead of me." Scotty tried to calm her down, but it was too late. Obviously, she noticed the way he was looking at me. They yelled at each other, and then Nellie started to cry. I took the kids to their room while Mom continued screaming in the kitchen. Then she slammed the door and left. We put the kids into bed and cleaned the kitchen. It was a hot mess. Mom broke some plates, and our dinner was all over the floor. Scotty looked really confused. At about 3 a.m., a strange noise woke me up. My mother came home drunk. She was packing her bags. Some stranger was waiting for her on a motorcycle outside. I asked what was going on, but she told me that she needed a break from us. Instead of saying goodbye, she wished me good luck with seducing her ex-boyfriend. That's it. She abandoned us that night. During the first week, I was hoping that she would come back, but she blocked our calls. Scotty couldn't reach her either. He hadn't planned to become a guardian for 3 kids at 22 years old. When he realized that my mom was not going to come back anytime soon, he ran away too. He just left a note on the kitchen table saying that he was sorry. When I saw the note, I started to cry. The last source of support and hope for us was gone. I tried, but I couldn't reach Nellie's or Tommy's fathers either. And then I decided to call my mother's brother, Uncle Dan, the only living relative I was aware of. He was retired and lived on a farm far away from our town. Uncle Dan agreed to come over and help us. While I was figuring out all these issues, I almost forgot about the prom. I was so tired and stressed out that I decided to spill the truth to my friends when I saw them at school. I had no money for the limo or for a dress. Their reaction was predictable. They suggested that I go to the prom by bus, and then they just changed the subject, like my family drama was nothing. At that moment, I realized that I didn't have any real friends at that school. When I got home that day, I was desperate. I decided not to go to the prom at all, but my brother and sister called me into their room. What I saw just shocked me. Nellie and Tommy had created a dress for me out of cigarette packs and coupons that my mom had left in the basement, just like I had made the castle for them. They assembled the pieces around our old mannequin. I had used it for my creative projects many times. They decorated the dress with coupons and bills. Of course, the dress needed some adjustments. We finished it together and had fun. I was so touched that I cried. I finally realized that my loved ones were there for me. It did not matter that our mother didn't want us. We had each other. At that moment, I promised myself that I'd never give up on my dreams. Uncle Dan looked after the kids, and I went to the prom in that dress. My teacher tried to shame me for my unorthodox look, but I told her the truth, and she had to shut up. Even my ex-friends had to admit that I was the brightest star of the evening. After the prom, Uncle Dan took us to his farm. Nellie and Tom are living with him now, and I study at the local college nearby. The admissions committee was impressed by my prom dress, which I called the heritage dress. When the police finally found my mom, she was alive and living happily ever after in another state with some guy. The court deprived her of her parental rights. I attended the trial, and it seemed like she didn't even care. When I left the court, I received a text message from her saying, "Nice dress." Uncle Dan showed her my picture before the hearing.